This call is now being recorded. This call is now being transcribed. This call is now taking notes. Hello, hello. How are we doing? How is the Sunday morning going so far? I mean, honestly, like, y'all are here online on a Sunday morning in itself is a big deal. That too for paper one. So, good job showing up. Uh, yeah. Are there more people? Can we, like, I have the chat box open. We'll talk for some time and then we'll start. Do you all know anything about paper one? Is this your first class of paper one today? Okay, great. Okay. Do you all know anything about paper one, like as in especially the Indian logic part? Any idea what all things we cover in this? I mean, I know for a fact that people are scared of Indian logic because they find it uh, extremely confusing and dry and समझ में नहीं आता है क्या है. Okay. Yes, overloaded with jargon. Yes, I do agree. Yes. By any chance, have you all done like your minors in philosophy, or are you all like psychology honors students? Okay, okay. You've studied Indian philosophy, but sub bio. Yes, Pavni. Yes, Indian logic views human experience, consciousness. Correct. That is what it is about. Ancient Indian culture. Oh, by any chance, were you in Xavier's? Sarah? Okay, yeah, because the ancient Indian culture is a subject which Xavier's offers as and it's very well known for. Okay, nice. So okay, so I think all of us find it difficult. Is there anyone else who finds this interesting by any chance? Like, oh, Indian philosophy, amazing, sounds good. Anyone? Okay, you studied it as part of your BSc psychology program. Okay, okay. It was never taught well. Yeah, unfortunately, like there are certain subjects like that. Also, I was telling you, cognitive psychology, then testing, research methodology, neuropsych also up to a certain extent. Then Indian philosophy. These are things which, if not taught in an engaging manner, can become very dry, and it may come across as if नहीं हो पाएगा हमसे. But it's not that. It is actually interesting. But again, the thing is, all of our curriculum is so fixed on the Western side of things, like Western philosophy or Western psychology, that kahin na kahin we ignore what has happened within our country and how things have moved forward. So it is very unfortunate that we find this part very boring. Like I used to teach social psychology as well, and under NEP now we have the IKS coming in. So we have Indian knowledge system. So we have to include every single like Indian thing as one module under all the subjects. So I remember in social psychology also when I was teaching this year, the moment I said, okay, we are going to be looking at Indian social psychology, I could see the students' faces like just get all like the glow went down. They're like, oh no, so boring. But it shouldn't be like that. It is interesting. Yes, it is extremely jargon heavy, but we'll try to get there. We'll try to understand what each word means, and we will see. Obviously, we might not be able to relate to it, and some of us may also find it pointless. Ki why are we studying this in psychology? But we have to understand that philosophy and psychology are very much, connected to each other. So I think today, even before we start with paper one, and even before I start with Indian logic, I first want you to understand what is the connection between philosophy and psychology. Although paper one has nothing to do with psychology, I think for us as psychology students, it is important for us to understand why this is important in our field. Okay. So first we will start with how philosophy and psychology are like deeply interconnected and stuff. And then dheere dheere we'll move on to Indian logic. It may not be like, at least for the first half of the session, it may not be extremely paper one oriented, but I think your foundation needs to be strong, your interest needs to be there in order to even study the dry things, which are from the exam point of view. So yeah, what do you think? Does it sound good? Like, does the plan sound good to you? Are you all interested in learning the like connection between philosophy, psych, and stuff? Okay, great, amazing, fine. Uh, yeah, Sarah was saying it was always loaded with storytelling and then shifting between topics. That is one problem with philosophy. And to be very honest, so I have also done my minors in philosophy. Like I have majors in psych and minors in philosophy and political science. So I remember, and 11th, 12th, I was a science student, by the way. So I was absolutely clueless when I shifted to arts for psychology. And I remember my very first philosophy class, I was clueless. And like you correctly pointed out, a lot of times they shift between topics. The thing is, they are all connected. They just, that the teachers probably are not understanding that we are very new to this. So the connection is very much there in their head, but probably it doesn't get translated when they are teaching us, right? So that is why they seem a little unrelated. But at least in my class, I will try to, draw parallels and make sure that everything is coherent. So yeah, all right, great. So let's begin. Um, this class obviously is going to be very different from my POG and neuroscience classes. You will actually feel like you're studying philosophy. So I hope you all have fun. Okay, let's begin. Now, अभी के लिए I'm like chat box में बंद कर रही हूँ. I will keep coming back and every time like I want to chat with you, I'll let you know and then you all can type. Okay, fine. So let's begin with the class. All right. Now, first, like I said, I want to first develop a strong understanding between the relationship that psychology and philosophy share with each other. Okay. Uh, and okay, this is something that my philosophy teacher had once explained it to me. Because as a psych student, very resentfully only I had chosen philosophy because the options that were offered to us in college were limited. So I took philosophy, and I remember asking ma'am that, ma'am, why is it that philosophy is so important? Okay, why? I mean, what is philosophy? Philosophy is a way of living, right? So then let us live. Like, why should we study it? Like, we'll just live and we'll figure out, right? And I always used to wonder, why is it called MPhil? Why is it called PhD? And I asked her that, why? I mean, PH stands for philosophy, right? So even if I'm doing my PhD in psychology, why am I saying that I'm doing PhD? Like, why am I saying doctorate in philosophy? Or when I'm doing MPhil in clinical psychology, why am I saying that I am doing my master's in philosophy? Like, why is philosophy given so much importance? And why is it that, irrespective of whatever I'm studying, be it science, be it architecture, law, whatever, everywhere you see PH, 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 why? To which my professor had a very brilliant explanation, which I will share with you today. She said, imagine that, you know, this is your circle. Okay? This is basically all the knowledge that exists in your life. Okay, everything, every single thing. So be it from very basic things like cooking to very, very big things like, life sciences and mathematics and archaeology or psychology, zoology, anything. Okay. This circle is basically all the knowledge that exists in this world. Okay. Now, uh, when we are young, when they're teaching us very basic stuff, right? Let's say we are here. I'm sure you all had missed my Picasso drawing, so I'm going to do it heavily today. So imagine like when we were young, when we were kids, okay, we used to go to school and they started exposing us to different subjects like EVS, ho gaya, history, political science, civics, sorry, then geography, and maths, Marathi, languages, Hindi, English, and stuff like that. We are literally tapping onto the very basics of what exists in this world, right? Very small part of this entire knowledge that exists, we are tapping onto a very small part of that, and हमें ना बाहर से दिखाया जा रहा है कि see these are the things which are there in life, right? This is our primary exposure to knowledge, right? Now, when we talk about philosophy, there are two things. Philosophy primarily deals with two things. First, knowledge, as in how do we get knowledge? Okay. And reality, that is, how do we know for sure what is the nature of things? So now comes the jargon part. This is called epistemology, and this is called ontology. Okay. Now coming back to our circle. Basically, what was our source of knowledge when we were in school? Our teachers and the textbooks that we had, correct? And we were just getting like a very brief exposure to what knowledge exists out there. Now, as we grew up and just say 10th ho gaya, we liked one part over the other. Like we thought, oh, science seems more interesting than history. Or some of us thought, wow, geography is amazing. I think I want to do this. Then some of us thought, ki, no, I think I would like to know a little bit about accounting. I would rather do this. So if we were here when we were back in school, we started moving to those particular areas. Okay, let's say when I was taking admission in college. Now here we had the subject matter experts. Okay, they were like, "Acha, tumko commerce karna hai? Come on. You want to take science? Okay, come on. You want to take arts? Okay, come on in." And then each one of us enrolled in specific courses. And by the way, these circle things are classrooms. Okay, मन की आंखों से देखोगे तो तुमको दिखेगा कि these are classrooms. And these small figures are you guys who have taken up art, science, and commerce. Okay. Now, while you are here, your subject teacher acts like a tour guide. Okay. Jaise whenever, let's say, we go to some historical places, we go and reach out to a tour guide, right? Like, can you please explain us the history behind these places and stuff? Correct. So your teachers act like the tour guide. Imagine, like, let's say you are in Agra and you want to see the Taj Mahal. Now, even before you decide you want to go to the Taj Mahal, you must have seen it at your own place on the internet. Wow, this looks so cool. I would want to go there one day. Or you might have, let's say now some of you have studied ancient Indian culture, or some of you have studied, like all of us have studied history, right? So when all of us are studying this, and when our teachers tell us, oh, this is Taj Mahal, it is one of the seven wonders, they are just giving us information, correct? And then we decide, oh, this is interesting enough for me to actually want to go visit. Similarly, something like this happens with knowledge. When we have taken art, science, or commerce, or whatever. Okay, teachers are like tour guides who are showing us, okay, see, this is also interesting, this is also interesting, this is also interesting. And you're like, yaar, this makes sense. I think I'm falling in love with this subject, right? And then you're like, okay, I would want to dig in deeper. That is when you would start deciding what do you want to do for masters. So then it is you now going deeper into this. Okay. When you're studying psychology, you realized कि अच्छा tour guide ने तुमको pictures दिखाए हैं of different monuments. Similarly, your teacher has shown you different aspects. कि psychology में there is industrial also, there is clinical also, there is counseling also, neuropsych also. You decide, and then you decide and you start going in deeper and deeper and deeper, right? So now you're moving from epistemology, like different knowledge, the sources of knowledge that you had. Now you're also going to start questioning, where am I getting this knowledge from? And at the same time, you're now going to start to tap onto the ontological aspect of it. As in, whatever I'm studying, where is it coming from? Is it true? What is the nature of reality? That is why when you go for masters, people ask you to do dissertations and research. right? Why? Because now we want you to dig in deeper. We want you to understand what is the nature of reality. We want you to understand where is the knowledge coming from. That is why you have hypothesis. And that is why you have to test the hypothesis. Correct? And as you go in deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, what is the ultimate degree that you can eventually get, even after MPhil? It is PhD, correct? Now, in PhD, people say you need to have unique ideas and you need to have like uh, things which people have never asked, like questions which people have never asked, questions, dance, you have to find answers to questions which, have never been answered before. So basically, irrespective of which field you start from, okay, all of you eventually end up at the same place, which is here, where there are questions that you don't have answers to, right? And that point is basically philosophy, okay? And that is why we say PhD, MPhil, because at the root of all the subjects that exist out there is philosophy. So the deeper you go, you realize, oh my God, there are so many questions which people have not asked only. That is why PhD takes so much time, and that is why it is not easy. Unfortunately, in today's age and time, people are just doing it for the sake of degree. But this was the entire point behind PhD. So that is why if you try to recall all the subjects that you've studied so far, not just psychology, anything, it always starts, the first unit is always history of that particular subject. And if you see in that first unit, they always mention Greek, like what people used to do in Greece and the Greek philosophy, and you'll always see Plato and Aristotle being mentioned and stuff. Correct? Why? Because everything started from philosophy. So psychology also as a subject came from philosophy. So what happened is that when psychology was evolving, it heavily relied upon philosophy. Now I think it is very obvious also that when we talk about philosophy, we are talking about the qualitative aspect of things, right? Because it started with Aristotle, it started with Plato, questioning life and questioning, understanding people's psyche and stuff. And क्या हो रहा था? It became too qualitative in nature. And this was also the time when we really wanted to see psychology as science. And in order for something to be called science, it has to be verifiable, it has to be predictable, it has to be replicable, right? So, in order to do that, we can't deal with just qualitative stuff, right? We need to quantify it in some way. And for that, we moved on to the philosophical inquiry of things and we started like making it more scientific in nature, right? That is why we say psychology is both art and science. Art because philosophy, and science because quantification, right? So that has been the journey of psychology, and basically this is why philosophy is very important to us. Are we getting this part? Like whatever I spoke so far, do we have any questions with regards to this? I'm opening the chat box. Is this part clear? Yeah? Okay. Falling in love with thinking deeper into your subject of interest would be philosophy then. Definitely. Like when you as you go further and you reach a point where literally whatever you're thinking of has never been answered before or whatever, you have reached a point of philosophy. Rather than thinking of philosophy as a subject, you have to think of it as a core. Okay? Everything is going to lead you to it. Okay? So now that we've understood this, I think we have some context as to why this is important. Okay. Now, like I said, the Indian philosophy has been heavily neglected because all our focus is on the Western philosophers, right? Because that is how our academia is. This is how our academia is shaped also. If you look at our textbooks also, very few textbooks have Indian authors. You'll notice. So a lot of let's say abnormal psychology textbooks you pick up, all the percentages that they have given, the prevalence rates for depression, anxiety, and whatnot, all of them are not from the Indian point of view. All of them are very westernized. So it is upon us to also focus uh, on the things which originated from India and understand our point of view and how we try to understand the nature of reality and what were our knowledge sources, right? Now, again, I would like to give a heads up that, again, according to the net syllabus, whatever we are going to study in Indian philosophy is very heavily rooted in Hinduism. Okay. Some part is also in Jainism and Buddhism, but unfortunately, they don't cover the Islamic origins or and every other things, which are also equally important and which also equally uh, form the basis of Indian logic. But like I said, according to the net syllabus, it is very Hinduism heavy. Now, my job is going to be to tell you again. I am that tour guide who is going to show you things. Ki ye tha, ye tha, ye tha. You have to just take in information and keep it with you. Okay. So now, understanding basically the Indian logic, okay, Indian philosophy. Now we'll dive into that. But before I start explaining the jargon, I first will ask you some questions. Also, this will be a little interactive because philosophies in general can come across as boring. So I want us to talk to each other while I'm teaching you this. Tell me, let's say you have a best friend, okay? Now, how do you know that your best friend is trustworthy? How do you understand that, oh, she is trustworthy, she is not? How do you come to that conclusion? Can you all tell me? Like, what makes you think, oh, these people are like nice. Like, I can, yes, correct. Based on past experiences, beautiful. Show up when you need them, correct. Yes. Relationship with other people in life, very good. Situation and time, yes, exactly. This is how we understand, right? Uh, okay. Now, let's say I ask you, now this was about your best friend. Now, let's say uh, there's a closed door, okay? And behind you all have watched The Office? Have you all? Yes, great. So, you remember the episode, I think stress relief episode, when Dwight starts the fire. Array, if you all have not watched The Office, what are you guys doing in life? Please go watch. Like, not now, finish the class and then you can watch. So, there is this episode, okay, where this guy starts fire in his office, okay. You need not know the plot for you to understand this concept. It's very quick. It's just that he is the kind of person who takes drills very seriously, and he is this guy. His name is Dwight. So he wants to fool his office members to think that there is an actual fire in the office, and he wants to make them realize, see, you never paid attention to any of the drills and the instructions that we gave you all. Now you all are stuck. He wants to prove a point basically. That is why he starts a fire in his own office. Okay. So point is, now none of them actually see fire. There's just a lot of smoke going on, right? Now everyone starts realizing, oh my god, there is smoke, there is smoke, there is smoke. Okay. Now they are concluding based on this that there must be fire outside the door, right? They're not able to see it, but they're concluding this. Why do you think they are concluding this? Like, why do you think they think acha fire hoga when they are not able to see it? What do you think is the answer to this question? Logical deduction? Yes. Okay. Association, cause and effect, of course. Like you think, okay, smoke, how much intensity is the smoke coming in with? Like if it was very little or something, you could have assumed, oh, is it like someone smoking? Or, if you were in a religious place, you would be like, oh, is this like some agarbatti that is put up? Or if you were in a kitchen or if you were in a restaurant, you would have thought, oh, is the food burning or something, right? But yeah, like you all correctly said, uh, perception is that if there is some kind of smoke and I'm in the office right now, there must be some fire because now the alarms are also ringing, right? So they inferred, correct Pavni, they inferred what they could from the information that was available to them, right? So if you look at it, all our life, okay, is about this only. If you look at it, whether we realize it or not, we are constantly using different kinds of tools to arrive at the truth. We always want to go the closest to understanding the true nature of things, right? Whatever we decide in our real life, on what basis do we do that? On what basis are our decisions based? Our past experiences, our gut feeling, the kind of things that the person has said to us. Let's say when I ask you, how do you know your best friend is trustworthy? Like many of you correctly pointed out, past experience. फिर एक gut feeling होता है, vibe match होता है. A lot of you, we also look at words. No, if a friend says, "I'll be there for you when the rain starts to pour." Now you're going to believe them. कि, okay, they are going to be there for me when the rain starts to pour, right? And when they say, I'll be there for you as I've been there before and stuff, all that Friends ka title song. How, if the words are, they're stating these things by themselves, you're going to trust them. But not just the words, but also the actions that they are indulging in. If their words and actions don't match with each other, we are going to come to a conclusion that, bro, not a trustworthy person. Correct? So this is what we do in our day-to-day life. We base things on our past experiences, our gut feelings, on what people say, our observations and stuff like that. Now, when we look at Indian philosophy, okay, there is a name for all these tools that we use to arrive at the truth. And these tools are basically called the pramanas. Okay. All the words, terms, Sanskrit words that I will be using, I will be writing it in English as well as in Devanagari for you to understand the pronunciation of it. Okay. So these are called pramanas, okay, which is basically means of knowledge. Remember, I told you about epistemology. It has to do with sources of knowledge. Pramana is basically the way we get that knowledge. Okay. So it is basically a means of knowledge, and that too, means of valid knowledge. Okay. Because Indian philosophers took knowing very, very seriously. Okay. They weren't just asking what is real, because that is ontology. Correct. They were not only asking what is real, but they were also asking, how do we know what is real? And in order to understand how do we know what is real, they named these tools that we use, past experience, gut feeling and stuff, as pramanas, okay, or praman. Praman, okay, which is means of valid knowledge. Okay. Now, this is where we try and understand a few technical terms. Okay. Now, like I mentioned the office episode where people started seeing smoke and they were like, oh my God, I think there is fire, there is fire, there is fire. Same logic. Let's say I'm standing here and there is a hill in front of me. Okay. And I see smoke on that hill. What am I going to say? I see smoke on a hill. Therefore, I infer fire. Correct? So basically, I am the knower. Okay. Knower. Why? Because I'm the one who's standing and I'm seeing the smoke. So I'm the one who is getting to know something. Now, what tool am I using? I am using inference. Correct? Inference. That is a tool. So inference is my praman, because that is the means of valid knowledge in this particular scenario. Now, why am I using this inference? To know about fire. So when there is an object, like I am the subject, I'm trying to use a tool, which is Praman, to understand the object. And object here is fire. So object is basically called Prameya. Okay? Prameya. Okay? So basically, I, the knower, I use the tool that is inference, Praman, to know that there is fire. There must be fire. So that fire is the object which is called Prameya. Therefore, when I arrive at the valid knowledge, okay, when I finally arrive at this valid knowledge, see, yes, definitely there's fire. That is called Prama. Okay, are we getting this? So basically, I'll just erase this because I need, wait, I'll erase this. Okay, so basically, we have the knower, which is Pramatra. Okay, yeah, Pramatru. Okay, I am the knower. I use a tool which is Praman. Okay, to know what an object, and that object is called Prameya. Okay, and all of this process results in valid knowledge, which is Prama. Okay, so basically it is knowledge, Pramana, object, valid knowledge. Okay, are we getting this? Are we following? Can you all quickly tell me this? Are we following? Great. So, quickly understanding the terminologies, what I just mentioned here. We have knower, which is Pramatra, who uses Pramana, which is basically your tool, means of knowledge. No, the process is not Prama. The end, the valid knowledge is Prama. Okay? Rinsi, are you understanding this? So we have knowledge. First we have the knower, which is I, like the person who's standing in front of the hill, who's seeing smoke. I'm the person who's perceiving things. So I'm the Pramatru. Now, in order to understand why is this smoke coming, where is it coming from, I'm going to use some tool to understand it. And here the tool is going to be Praman, which is inference. And how will I know this? And what am I trying to know? I'm trying to understand if there is fire. So fire is your object, which is your prameya. And that results in Prama, which is valid knowledge. Okay. Random thought, but is this why certifications are called Praman Patra? Probably, because Praman has to do with inference. You are basically writing exams and you're getting marks for it. And based on that, those marks, we are inferring that, okay, you may be good at these subjects. So you may be good in life or figuring out life. So that could be Praman. Okay. No, Praman is not evidence. Praman is always a tool to gather evidence. Okay. All right. So now that we've understood this, again, quick revision. Praman means instrument of valid knowledge. Prama means valid knowledge itself. Pramatru means knowledge, the knower, that is the subject, and prameya means the known, that is the object. Okay, are we clear with this? 100%. Pramana, prama, pramatra, prameya. Okay, and I would really, just say I had said for neuropsych, it is always a good idea to revise this by saying things out loud. Okay, yeah, this is the previous slide. If you all want, you can make a quick note of this before we go ahead. Fine, can we go ahead? Okay, fine. Moving on. Now that we know this, so basically, again, to quickly sum it up, so if I see smoke on the hill and I conclude there is fire, I am the pramatru, fire is the prameya, inference is my pramana, and my knowledge that there is fire is the prama, right? Now we keep talking about valid knowledge, valid knowledge, valid knowledge. But zaruri thodi hai ki every time we reach to the right conclusion. There are so many times when we conclude something which is invalid. So there must be a word for invalid knowledge also. Now, when something is invalid, invalid knowledge, okay. According to Indian philosophy, invalid knowledge comes because of false cognition, okay. And therefore, we call it aprama. Okay. So invalid knowledge is called aprama because obviously valid knowledge is prama, invalid knowledge is going to be aprama. And false cognition is basically called pramanik jnana or gyan. Okay. So apramanik means false. Okay. Jnan means knowledge. So that is false cognition. So according to the Indian philosophy, when our process of inferring goes wrong and leads to false knowledge, it is called aprama. So for example, let's say I am standing like in a dark room, and in that dark room there is a rope, and I mistake the rope, or dark room bhi chodo, let's say I'm walking in a forest and there is a rope on the ground, and I sort of start mistaking it for a snake. Oh my god, there must be a snake here. See, technically, logically speaking, there could have been a snake because literally you are in a forest. So ऐसा नहीं है that your process was wrong, but it did not lead you to valid knowledge, right? So that is aprama because that is invalid knowledge. ठीक है? Now, understand that unlike Western philosophy, Indian philosophy doesn't begin with doubting everything. If you've read a little bit of the Western philosophy also, it always begins with, does this exist? Or everything comes with doubt. But in Indian philosophy, it always, like everything that you read, always begins with the idea that the world can be known. Okay. World can be known. And that knowing is what is going to lead you to liberation. Okay. So that is the core of Indian philosophy. Now, when we keep talking about pramanas, that is praman, what are the different kinds of tools that we use in our day-to-day life? Now, this is where I want you all also to think. I spoke about inference, correct? That is one of the tools that we use in our day-to-day lives. Can you think of other things that we use in day-to-day life to come up with decisions? Like anything. Just say inference is one of the things. There must be some other things, right? Heuristics, okay. What else? Gut feeling, okay. Yes, comparison to other options, beautiful. Yes, very good. What else? Pros and cons, perfect. Anything else? Very basic of cognition. The very first thing that we see in cognition. Getting told by trusted information, correct. Verbal communication, yes. What we could see as truth. Reasoning, perfect. Perception, the first basic part, correct. Sensing, beautiful. Perception is the main thing. The way we perceive world is, in fact, when we are babies, when we don't understand language, when nothing has developed yet, no cognitive faculty has developed yet, or is at a very primitive stage. How do we make sense of the world? By our perception, right? So the way you all correctly pointed out, so there is perception that we use as a tool. There is inference that we use as a tool. A lot of you said we use comparison. Comparison is nothing but analogy. So that is used as a tool. Then someone said verbal something. I forgot what you all mentioned. Yes, Jnanendriya, correct, Unnati. Very good. Because our senses give us information, that is why they are called Jnanendriya. Very good. Verbal communication, Arima, you had mentioned. Uh, then someone said when you get some information by some other trusted person, so you can call it like testimony, correct? Because that is something that can be taken as an evidence. Now, in geometry uh, or some theorists, when they are coming up with a theory, what is the word that we use? They postulated a theory. This is the postulation, right? So you have why is it not moving? Yes. So there is postulation, correct? Then a lot of times we understand things just because they are absent, right? For example, think about it. Right now, when you're able to see me, you are inferring there is light because there is absence of darkness. Or let's say something happens, there's some glitch, and I get logged out of the meeting or whatever, you're going to infer that I think there must be some glitch because she is not present in the class. Correct? Or a lot of times when you are going to an offline college and the teacher doesn't show up, what do you conclude? A proxy, आज तो class नहीं मिल class तो मतलब zero period or whatever. On what basis? Because the teacher is not there, absence. Correct? So according to the Indian philosophy, these are the 6 tools through which we gain knowledge: perception, inference, analogy, testimony, postulation, and absence. And obviously, we are not going to stick to the English terms. We have their Sanskrit counterparts. So let's have a quick look at that. So perception means pratyaksha, inference means anumana, analogy means upamana, testimony is shabda, postulation is arthapatti, right? Artha means to make sense of things. Absence is anupalabdhi. Okay. Now, let's understand what they actually mean. I'll obviously give you all examples so that it becomes a little more relatable. Okay, let's say pratyaksha means perception, means actually seeing something. Okay. Like seeing is one of the examples that I'm giving, but it could be seeing it, hearing it, like whatever you directly get from your senses. Okay. So let's say you go to your canteen in college and you spot your crush there. Okay. So based on this, you're going to be like, oh, so they have come to college today. Correct. On what basis did you come to this conclusion? You saw it. You saw them in the canteen and it just made your day. Right? So that is pratyaksha. Then you have anumana, which is inference. And if you really want to explain it in layman terms, it is basically guessing. Okay. Guessing based on clues. We are not talking about like uh, uninformed guessing. Obviously based on clues. Okay. So for example, I'll give you a very like personal example. Let's say now yesterday one of my friends had come over, okay, to stay at my place. Now both of us are like we keep playing games and stuff. So I had gone to one of my bedrooms to get something, and she stood outside trying to scare me. Okay, because there was a lot of darkness in the house, and it was just our bedroom lights which were on. And she tried to scare me. But even before I was stepping out of my other bedroom, I knew that she was standing outside because a past experience, I know she has full capability of doing that. And second, I had heard her footsteps. Okay, that she was like trying to, come outside the door and stand. So I could hear her like adjusting herself behind the door. So I knew she's going to be there. She's going to try to scare me. So when I opened the door, she was there trying to scare me. But I obviously didn't get scared. So why did this happen? Because I made an anumana. I guessed based on clues. What were the clues here? I heard her footsteps. And I guessed कि यही खड़ी होगी बाहर. Right? So that is anumana. Then you have upamana, which is comparison. So basically, you figure something out by comparing it to something familiar. So let's say if you want to explain to someone what is pot rice, let's say you have your nani nana, you're taking them to a restaurant, and you tell them, okay, let's order Chinese pot rice, and they're like, what is that? So you'll explain them कि ऐसे समझो चाइनीज बिरयानी है या चाइनीज वेजिटेबल खिचड़ी है, right? So what are you doing here? You are drawing some comparison between what they already know, and you are trying to help them understand something that they are not familiar with, correct? So that is upamana, comparison. Then there is shabda meaning word, as in someone telling you something. So when you trust someone's word, it is shabda. So for example, let's say you're having a terrible time, okay, and let's say your friend is disregarding your emotions, and you feel like your friend is not really hearing you. And let's say you have a therapy session and you go to the therapist and you tell them, I was crying and I was sobbing and I was telling this to my friend and he was just not understanding. And when your therapist says, oh, that must have felt really bad, I mean, that was very rude of him to uh, disregard your emotions. So when she says it, why do we feel nice? Because we feel like, oh, someone is hearing me, right? And when this person says, he, that was rude of him, when the therapist is saying that, you suddenly feel like, हाँ यार, ये तो rude था. मतलब, I'm sure 10 times your friends must have told you that, no, this is rude. Don't put up with this behavior. But when the same thing comes from a therapist, you feel validated, yes. When the same thing comes from a therapist, you feel like, हाँ, ये बोल रही है मतलब सच होगा. Correct. Validation from a formal source. So that is Shabda. That is testimony. Okay. So this is clear. Then you have assumption, which is Arthapatti. That is postulation. Okay. Now you assume something. Why do we assume something? Because nothing else makes sense. Right? That is when we go to assumption. Now you realize we are going in an order. Arthapatti comes very much later, because we don't really have enough information. That is when we start assuming. And that is why we keep saying, don't assume things, don't assume things. Why? Because we always prefer getting knowledge through things which are more tangible, which are more verifiable. Only when there is nothing of those sorts do we resort to assumptions. So let's say How is this different from anumana? For anuman to happen, for inference to happen, it has to be based in some kind of a thing. Like there has to be some tangible clues for me to guess something. Matlab something has happened and I am guessing. Assuming is a precursor of that. Yes, assumption is very similar to hypothesizing. Like you hypothesize that this affects this, but this has not actually affected this yet. It is yet to happen. I am assuming that this will affect this. Are you getting it? Jumping to conclusions, sort of. Correct. Because I don't have information yet. But I'm assuming because no other thing makes sense. For example, let's say I have a roommate. Now my roommate is saying, Snehal, let's do a thing. I'm going to, like, you are going to be the person, who's going to do an accountability check for me. I want to lose weight because in 3 months I'm getting married. I'm going on a strict diet. Okay. My roommate says this to me. Now, because she's asked me to hold her accountable every week, I ask her, okay, how, like, are you following the diet strictly? And she's like, yeah, absolutely. I'm on keto and I'm just eating those things. I'm off carbs and everything. But the weighing scale says otherwise. In fact, every week she's getting more weight. Now, technically, this doesn't make sense, right? If I am going on a strict diet and if I'm like doing portion control and stuff, I may not be losing weight quickly, but I should not be gaining weight, correct? So, based on this, I'm going to assume something that when I'm not there in the room, she eats or she goes out and eats junk food. She's eating healthy in front of me, but she's going outside and eating definitely something more. Because on the kind of diet that she is on and the kind of portion control that she is doing, it is no way possible for her to gain this much weight. So are you getting it? But again, there is no way of me knowing if she's actually eating when I'm outside or she is going outside and eating. I'm just assuming. So that is arthapatti. Okay. And then you have anupalabdhi. That is absence. Okay. So again, like I just mentioned before, I walk into the classroom. Let's say, like I'm the student. I walk into the classroom and I don't see a teacher there. So what am I going to assume? What am I going to conclude? Let's not use the word assume. What am I going to conclude? I am here. Teacher is not here. Means teacher has not come yet. Correct? So that is absence also tells us something. So these are the tools which we use in our day-to-day life in order to know things according to the Indian philosophy. Are we clear with this? I think today we should stop here only because I'm sure it has been a lot. I had thought that we'll start with the orthodox school of thoughts, but it's fine. So therefore, I have no MCQs for this part. So probably next time I can take it up. But so far, can we quickly revise what we just covered? What were the 4 words that we learned starting from P? Quickly, can you all come? Can we be a little active on the chat box? Yes, we talked about pramana, prameya, prama, correct. Now, can you all tell me the English counterparts? Like first, we have the knower. Knower is called pramatru, correct. Then that is the knower. Now, I am knowing something. How? Using some tool. What is that tool called? Pramana, correct. Now, that tool is used to understand some object. That object is called prameya, beautiful. And then when I reach valid knowledge, it is called perfect, prama. Now, when I reach invalid, when my conclusion is wrong, that is invalid knowledge, what is it called? Aprama, beautiful. And how does that happen? Due to false cognition. That false cognition is called apramanik jnana. Very good, very good. And there were 6 pramanas that we looked at: perception, inference, analogy, testimony, postulation, absence. So, pratyaksha, anumana, upamana, shabda, arthapatti, Anupalabdhi. Okay, are we clear with these things? Fine. So we'll wrap it up for the day. Can you all quickly tell me if this pattern of teaching worked with you all? Because I can understand philosophy is not one of our favorite subjects. So if you could tell me if you understood this, if the interaction was great, did any one of you feel sleepy? You can be very honest with me. Okay. If you all felt sleepy, please tell me. If you found it interesting, I'm very happy because honestly, philosophy is something that I also love a lot. Um, but yeah, great. So now that, wow, thanks guys. So next time we meet, we'll continue from here. Okay. And I will probably see you this week for cognitive psych. Okay. Chalo, bye bye. Have a great Sunday. And yeah, see. Yes, Rincy, you wanted to ask me something. You can ask your question in the chat box. Okay, fine. All right, bye guys. See you. You all can leave the meeting.